What you learned in the last lecture about using Babel was purely for demonstration. That's not the workflow you use when building real-world applications. So in this lecture, I'm going to show you the workflow that you should use on a day-to-day basis. So for this demo, I'm using this project that we worked on earlier. We have two modules, index.js and circle.js. In index, we simply import the circle module, we get the circle class, create an object, and draw it. If you want to code along with me, I've attached this project as a zip file to this lecture. Now open up command prompt or terminal and run this command. npm install -g, which is short for global. We're going to install Webpack CLI globally so we can access it in every project. The package name is Webpack-CLI, and the version I'm going to use, which is the latest version right now, is 2.0.14. Now, if you're on Mac and you haven't configured permissions properly, you need to prefix this command with sudo. All right, so we have installed Webpack CLI. Now in our project folder, we run Webpack-CLI space init. So Webpack CLI is going to ask us a bunch of questions, and based on these, it will create a Webpack configuration file, which used to be painful in the past. You had to jump back and forth in the documentation, but now we can easily generate this configuration file using Webpack CLI. So let's see what these questions are. Will your application have multiple bundles? Let's say no. We're going to have a single bundle. Which module will be the first to enter the application? We need to specify the starting point. So by default, it's suggesting to use index in the source folder. So back in our project, as a best practice, I'm going to move all our JavaScript files inside of a folder. So let's call that folder src and move index and circle there. Okay, now back in the terminal. So the path is /src/index. The next question is, which folder will your generated bundles be in? The default is dist. So we can press enter and accept the default. Are you going to use this in production? For simplicity, let's say no. Will you be using ES 2015 or ES6? Absolutely, because we're using classes and modules. So yes. And when we answer yes to this, this is going to automatically install Babel to transpile our code into ES5. So we don't have to explicitly install all those Babel packages. That's the benefit of using this Webpack CLI. Not only will it help us generate the configuration file for Webpack, but it will also download and install any other libraries and tools that we need. Let's go ahead. The next question is about CSS. We're not going to use CSS here, so no. Again, another question about CSS. If you want to bundle your CSS files, what will you name the bundle? So you can see with Webpack, not only can you bundle your JavaScript code, but you can also bundle your CSS. Again, we press enter to skip. And finally, it's asking us the name of our configuration file. So by default is webpack.config.js, but you can change this if you want. I suggest not to do that. Let's go ahead. Now this is installing a few packages. All right, so here are the packages. It installed Webpack CLI locally. It also installed uglify.js. This is used for uglifying code, which basically means shortening the name of our identifiers. You're going to see that in a second. It installed Babel core. So unlike the last lecture, we didn't have to explicitly install this. It installed Babel loader. In Webpack, we use loaders to pre-process files. So this is like a plugin for Webpack that uses Babel to transpile our files. It also installed Babel preset env, which you're familiar with, and finally Webpack library itself. Now back in the project, you can see here is our Webpack configuration file. All the details we supplied are now stored here. So the next step we need to do is to create a package.json file. So back in the terminal, let's run npm init --yes. Now back in the project, here's our package.json. In the script section, we're going to add a new command, call it build, and set it to Webpack. The only problem with the current implementation of Webpack CLI is that it's storing all these tools like Babel Core, Babel Loader, and so on under dependencies in package.json. But these are essentially development dependencies, so they should be stored here. But this will probably change in the future. So everything is ready. Now let's bundle our application. So back in the terminal, run npm run build. So this runs Webpack. You can see Webpack created a bundle called main.bundle.js, and it used these two source files, circle and index. Both of them are in the source folder. So back in the project, here's our dist folder. Here's our bundle. You can see our code is uglified. Look at these short identifiers like T, R, N. There's no white space in this code. There are no comments. And this is basically ES5 code. So Webpack run our code through Babel, and it converted it to ES5. Now we have one JavaScript file to serve to the client. So we go to index.html. Here in the script element, we remove type set to module because this was purely for demonstration earlier. And then change the source to dist/main.bundle.js. Now finally, we go live with this, and you should see this message, circle with radius 10. So this guarantees that everything is working. Our modules are working. Now with the current setup, every time we make a change to our source files, we have to go in terminal and run npm run build. This is time consuming. So let's simplify this. Back in package.json, here I'm going to change this build script to webpack-w. That's short for watch. So with this, Webpack is going to watch our files, and every time we make a change to any of our files, it will automatically regenerate our bundle. So save the changes. Now back in the terminal, we run npm run build. So you can see Webpack is watching the files. It generated our bundle. Now let's go and make a simple change to one of our source files. So let's open up index.js. I'm going to do a console.log I've changed. Save the changes. You can see Webpack regenerated our bundle. And here's our change message on the console. Also note that earlier, when I was demonstrating ES6 modules, I told you that as a temporary workaround, we had to add this .js extension here. So the browser could request this file from the server. But now that we're using a bundle, we don't need this anymore. So let's delete this, save the changes. Webpack regenerated our bundle and everything is still working. If I refresh, see, we still get all these messages.